You're listening to the Marginally Geeky Show, the epically geeky book club.
Greetings and welcome to the Marginally Geeky Show. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. Tonight I'm joined by Ray and Kris. How are y'all doing?
I'm awake, which is always a good start.
Yay!
And I gotta say, that intro music, I always feel like I'm about to march towards
Crested hill of a large battle.
I was telling him, it's a book club. When the guy who wrote it for us, so I was like, it's a book club. And he's like, what kind of books do you do? I'm like, well, a lot of fantasy and sci-fi and that type of stuff. So I think he grasped onto the fantasy part because it is definitely a fantasy type theme. So
because cool. It's not sci-fi.
No, it's not. So although that would be an interesting mashup, how you would do a fantasy and sci-fi mash.
Looking it up next.
So anyway, tonight, this is episode 83. We are talking about the Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. Last month we did Starter Villain by John Scalzi, and this was my pick. It's funny when we get to what we've been reading. I've actually got another book that had I had already read it, it would have been my pick instead of this one. Not that this is a bad book. I enjoyed this book, and I know Kris did as well. But yeah, it's when we get to that part, we'll have to talk about it. And I haven't even finished it yet. That's the funny thing. I've had so much stuff going on. I haven't even finished it yet, but I think it's just the idea of it has been so reassuring to me. I'm just like, okay, this is good news. And not to get political, but everything that's going on here in the U.S. kind of needs some good news right now.
Yeah.
So yeah. So let's go ahead and just do our brief introductory thoughts. Obviously I enjoyed it because I recommended it for the group. I read this before we read Starter Villain. So that's actually the reason I read Starter Villain was because Audible kept forcing it on me. Like I saw the Kaiju Preservation Society and there's like, hey, read this. And I'm just like, all right, fine. And I was just like, oh, okay, you did a good job. Because I don't really listen to, sometimes Netflix is not bad. Netflix is decent at recommendations for me. But like when it comes to YouTube, I don't listen to the YouTube recommendations at all. And so like Audible is kind of hit and miss for me. Nowhere near as bad as YouTube. But anyway, but yeah, so I obviously enjoyed it because I recommended it for the rest of the group to read. So, Ray, what were your initial thoughts?
I will forgive you for doubling up on the Will Wheaton.
Sorry about that.
We'll get to that. Yeah, it was a decent one-off, and it was. I will admit, I had a hard time picturing the monsters because they were like, "Oh, it's like this." But then they would, oh, and it's flying. I'm like, okay, that's not what I was picturing. And then I think the descriptions of the monsters maybe left me out of what it was. Because you say kaiju, I'm like, oh, okay, so like Godzilla or like, that type of thing. But then it was like, oh, well, it's flying. Okay, well, so it's like more that version of the kaiju. So that was my only thing, I think. But overall, it was, I enjoyed it.
You say that, and it never popped into my brain until you're explaining this, and then it just did, because it's not like for this thing to fly, it would have to have these massive wings that would come out, right? Mm-hmm. And all of it popped in my brain was the original animated Pete's Dragon from Disney, those little bitty wings on this dragon. Now I was just like, well, that's what it is. Maybe they just have these little bitty wings and they just go really fast.
That's amazing.
You know what? They didn't do a lot of detail in the description of it. So sure.
True. Nice. Kris, what were your initial thoughts?
I really liked it. I would like to work there. I think for me, because I don't understand science. I get it, but like not like enough. I think it's an advantage to me because I don't nitpick the science behind it. I just totally accept it as is. Like, sure, that sounds cool. So when they're describing the kaiju, all I think of and all I see is just Godzilla. So Godzilla's got wings. Godzilla's got wings. Okay, like I'm totally on board with that. I don't know. And like the parasites and all that stuff. I'm like, cool. I'm just picturing just little wormies crawling. Okay, I can do that. So I think for me, it's a benefit that I don't understand it because I'm just like, cool, okay, and I move on. So I think that was a benefit to me because I'm just like, science, schmience, it's a kaiju, cool, it's Godzilla. I am so in it. I want to work there. I hope it's real.
I know, right? All right, so let's just give you a quick brief. Those are the same things. Hold on, I'm gonna reply to Kris real quick. Anyway, no, let's give you a quick rundown. So the book is, we start off with a young man. He's trying to find a job. He ends up finding a job, and well, this is the brief rundown. But anyway, so he's working for a company, and he has this unfortunate situation that a lot of people find happens in corporate America. Like, he shows up, he's there for his evaluation, and he thinks, I've got a good shot at getting an advancement and a raise, and I'm about to become the head of this department or whatever. And so he's basically sitting down and he's just like, yeah, I've got some really great ideas and I think we should do this. And he's putting them out there. And the guy's just basically like, yeah, those are some pretty good ideas. By the way, we're firing you, and but you can still have a job. We're just going to make you essentially like a DoorDash person. And so he's super depressed. He lives with these two other guys, which we have a little bit of interaction with them. They're pretty funny. And he's essentially door dashing, and he comes across this guy, and he's really nice to him. The guy's really nice to him, and he's just like, by the way, this is during COVID, which is very important because that's also when this book was written, and we'll talk about that here in just a bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this guy offers him the job, and he's just like, yeah, sure, I'll take it. And he's like, what am I going to do? And he's like, you're going to be lifting stuff. That's all you need to know. You just have to lift stuff. He's like, all right, I can lift stuff. I'm good shape. I can lift stuff.
While working with large animals.
You're correct. And so he goes through this battery of vaccinations and stuff, and ends up flying away, and is with a group of people who are all scientists and stuff. And they're like, well, what is your specialty? Oh, well, I do this and I do that and this and the other. He's like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I lift stuff. And they take him to Greenland or Iceland? Greenland. And basically they're just like, oh yeah, by the way, so here's a portal to a alternate dimension, and where there are kaiju. And we found it out because when we dropped the atomic bomb, they were able to kind of come across to our universe. And that's how this works, is they are essentially nuclear generators. That's how these things survive. I know it doesn't make sense, but this is it. This is how the science works. And so once we figured that out, we didn't want them coming over to harm us, but we also didn't want people going over there to exploit them. So we created the Kaiju Preservation Society, and that's who he works for. And the rest of the book is just his interactions with other people there, what all he does, his interactions with the kaiju itself. And eventually him and a small group of newbies end up thwarting a major plot to try to steal a kaiju and essentially harness its DNA so that they can do organically grown nuclear generators. So it is a one-off, like Ray said, which was nice. It was nice having another, as we kind of talked about last time, as a palate cleanser, because it was a one and done. It was like, okay, if we get more books in this series, okay. But if we don't, I'm perfectly fine with it, just like it is. So, well, let's see here. So let's talk about some of the characters. So Jamie is the main character. He's our delivery driver. What thoughts on Jamie?
Typical
dude. He's just a really enthusiastic, just want to get, just want to do my best job. And I've got all these, he was very excited at Food Mood, which was that app that he worked for. And he just, was excited about his job and then got fired.
Just a regular, he is your typical protagonist that we're learning about the world as he does.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which I liked. And I don't know, he was just, there wasn't anything about him that stood out that I didn't like. He was just like a
decent morals. Yeah.
He's a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I agree. He's definitely our viewpoint, because everyone else is a scientist and this, that, and the other. So, but yeah, he's our main guy. Tom's the guy who offers him the job. I like Tom a lot. Tom just seems like a cool dude. So,
Yeah, I agree with that too. The helicopter pilot's probably my favorite though.
oh yeah, he's definitely an awesome guy.
Yeah,
There are I didn't write down a lot of the characters on here, but there are a lot of kind of standout characters. Like you said, the helicopter pilot's very cool. Some of the other scientists that he works with specifically. It's just a good what's the word they've seemed realistic. Like these seem like very energetic young people who are excited about what they're doing. None of them seem like they were like really far out there or anything.
No.
So
no, and there's a non-binary character in there too, Neve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only two other ones I wrote down specifically were Rob, who's the douchebag old boss, who shows back up, and ends up becoming the villain of the story. It just sounds like very much like this is not. The other thing about this is, even though it's a very far out premise that's happening in here, all the characters are very grounded, and I can definitely I can be like, yeah, I've worked with pretty much all of these people, or at least know all of these people at some point.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and then the only other one I wrote down was Bella, who's the kaiju that we mostly interact with.
Oh, that was like my favorite thing, that they named the kaiju after friggin' Twilight characters. It was Edward and Bella. I'm like, I love that so much.
And I love the fact that everyone interacts with it the same way. They're like, really, that's what you named it after, and they're just like, whatever. Like that's the time period we found them. So
it was a missed opportunity to say, wait till you see him sparkle.
That would have been fantastic.
That would have been really good. But
just saying.
Especially if he had just said it and then been like, when's he gonna sparkle? Oh no, that was a joke, dude. He didn't actually sparkle. Yeah.
I just don't sparkle.
Yeah.
He's not this
I mean, they do almost everything else, so I mean.
Yeah.
But let's see here. I already talked about how I picked the book, stuff like that. Any favorite particular parts? I love the scene where they're there's two scenes that go along with it. The one where they go and they're actually going to do their job, and the monster runs up on him, and he literally, so they go through this training, and they're basically told, yeah, you're going to use these weapons, because if you get down to like a pistol, like it's already too late. Like a pistol's not going to save your ass in this situation. And sure enough, he manages to save him and the rest of the group by doing like a one-time shot. I thought that was a really cool scene. But I love the scene afterwards where the entire camp, city, whatever you want to call it, has these big celebrations anytime there's something that's happened, and then they do give out these awards specifically for everyone for doing something or another, and they're totally made up off the cuff. And I love the fact that like after the first one, he's just like, oh, so that's what this is. This is just an excuse to say, hey, everyone came home in one piece. Mm-hmm. Let's celebrate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that scene a lot.
Yeah. I'd say for me, there's two standouts for sure. There's a few in this, but the one was the vaccination scene, and talking about like all the side effects that you might get through. And well, when you go into suicidal rage, maybe don't do that. Like that's
what was it? It was like one of them's going to make you contemplate like murder, and the other one's going to make you very, very lethargic. So they kind of even out. You'll be like really thinking about killing someone, but you're just going to be like, I just don't want to get off the couch.
I don't want to get up. That was great. I thought it was really good. And then the other one was when the Robert, the asshole, when he tries to buy the
pilot.
Get out.
that was fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And then the only other one that I really wanted to talk about too was I need you to know it in your heart. You know it in your mind. I need you to know it in your heart. The whole scene where he's being trained on the floor of on this planet is going to try and kill you, and I could just picture them all over his body, and they're trying to get through and everything, and you knew it, but you didn't.
Yeah, the tree crabs. Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a horrific thought. Like,
just saw he's like coming at you.
Yeah, that would be, even if you know that they can't get to you, it's just like, nope, I'm not down for this.
So what it kind of reminded me of is like taking somebody into the vault for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know it until you know it, and
Mm-hmm.
you got to be there to do it. So let's go, and you bring them in, and the wide eye stare is so known to people that have that kind of thing. It's like, oh yeah, I was there. Now you know. So yeah.
Kris, were there any standout scenes for you?
Yeah, I usually never remember scenes. I do like that they named the kaiju like regular names. I thought that was amazing. Just how well thought out the world was for how short the book was, and that it was a one-off. I think it was really well fleshed out. And this is one of the very few books that I actually predicted the twist, which I always have mixed feelings about, because I'm like, if I can figure this out, not that good of a twist. But I kind of liked it that the villain got his comeuppance. I think that might have been my favorite part, where the was like, yeah, you.
Yeah.
But just the general world building for me was, I bought it. I was in. Yeah, I really liked it.
Oh, one other thing, because you're saying that about the comeuppance. So at the very end, when they land in the Canadian, the was it a port or whatever, and they're coming up and they're just like, well, what are we going to do? They're like, I got this. And he's like, oh, wait a minute, that's right, I forgot, everyone here is either like a scientist or like super high level in the government or whatever. And I just took it as, well, he's a helicopter pilot. Oh no, he also is like a colonel or whatever it was. He was like high ranking or whatever. It's just like, no, I like to fly. That's why I'm here. So
everybody there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm like you. I for as short as the book was, and so let's going to talk about how the book came about. So John Scalzi talks about we all listened to the audiobook version of this. Whenever at the end of the book, he talks about how, and we touched on this a little bit at the end of Starter Villain. He literally was writing another book. This was during COVID. Everything happened, and that book just basically fell apart on him. And he was like, I could not do it. I had everything was set up ready to go for this. And he's like, I had to go to the company. And was, I can't come through with this. He's like, I know this is the mortal sin for writers is signing the contract. I got the checks. I'm not producing what it is I'm supposed to produce. And then literally that night came up with the idea for this. And then the next day was just like, hey, I don't have that one, but I've got this book. And everyone was happy with it. Everyone was like cool. They had to, shift gears, but at least he was able to produce something. And ended up being a fun little book, a fun little one-off. So,
yeah.
So, and I know we talked about with Shaun on the last episode how a lot of his other writing tends to be darker and deeper, and I'm just like, I kind of want to try one of those other books, but part of me is just like, no, I kind of want to just stick with fun, lighthearted John Scalzi if there's more of those. So, yeah. Any least favorite parts?
Least favorite.
The boss is an asshole. The whole again. I appreciate it for the story building,
the $1 bet.
But the $1 bet to fire everybody, that's real. I'm sure. So fuck you, whoever actually.
Yeah, that definitely seems like something someone would do. So
I didn't like when some of the staff got murdered, like when the mercenaries came through and did that. I didn't like that.
Yeah,
I usually don't like that in books, anyways. But so. I didn't like that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And then again, the only other thing would be the description or their lack thereof of the kaiju, of which ones we're looking at. So
nice.
Give me a little more detail, or I'm just picturing Dragon. So
you know what? I think that's pretty much kind of what I filled in, was just like, okay, it's gonna be kind of like a dragon. Okay, it flies. Well, then maybe it had wings somewhere. I didn't. Yeah. Whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
I did, but the peach dragon thing literally hit me as you were talking about it earlier. So, Any thoughts on the writing?
I thought it was fun. Excuse me. I thought it was fun. It was nice and light, palate cleanser. Like he said in his acknowledgments, this is a pop song.
Yes.
It's a pop song. It's supposed to be upbeat, light. Don't think too much about it. That's not what this book is. And I really appreciate that because I think some people are very serious readers. And if it's not hitting something, there's something wrong with it. It's not literature. It's not good. And it's like
classical music.
Being entertained is a very broad spectrum. So sometimes you just need fluff. And for John to be like, yeah, if you think this is fluff, because it is. So like, cool, you got it. There's nothing more here. There's nothing more to look into than what's here.
Yeah. And like we said last episode, sometimes you just need a palate cleanser. Sometimes you don't need, like our friend Joseph is currently starting the Expeditionary Force books. And I think he's on book 3 now or whatever. Not that they're like super deep books or anything, but there's like 17 of them. So, I mean, this is a long drawn out story that he's going through. And sometimes you just need a one and done to be like, nope, that's all I needed. I just need a fun little story. So not everything has to be a trilogy.
No. Sometimes I have so many first parts of series and I just have not expanded on them. One, because I forget. You forget. Or you don't like them enough to continue, or especially
if there's like a long period of time between book 1 and 2. It's like,
yeah,
I don't remember who this is. Who the hell is that guy? What's going on?
Yeah.
I have no memory of this place.
Yes.
Jumping ahead to one of our questions, if you could ask the author anything, I think that's what I'd want to ask him was, so is your contract set up so that it's just like you have to deliver a certain amount of books within a certain amount of time? Or is that kind of how you have it rolling? Or at any time are they like, okay, are we getting a 2 and a 3? Did they ever push you for, a sequel or, try to make this a trilogy or whatever? And since he's been that prolific of a writer, it's, he's probably well above that type of thing. I have a feeling they probably hit a lot of newer writers with stuff like that. Like, well, yeah, you got 1 book, we really kind of need a trilogy, or we need 4. We needed this to be a series that we can, keep pushing them out. So I would just ask him that is, did anyone ever push you for, sequels to this, or even starter villain, actually, to be honest with you. So
yeah.
Pardon me.
Questions for the author. I would ask, because he kind of touches on the multiple Earth theory a little bit. So my question would be, if you could make a third world, what would it be? So
that would be interesting,
because he does touch on that a little bit. So
yeah,
just be curious what that third world could look like. So.
Kris, any particular questions you'd have for the author?
No, kind of both of yours. Like you said, because he's prolific. Is it just a contract where it's like, we just need a book a year, whatever, whatever you need to do, but like, this is sort of the pace at which you need to be working at. I don't know. I've heard one, right? She was the one who did Eat, Pray, Love, Gilbert, and she actually went to her publisher and was like, I have this idea. Will you give me an advance of however many dollars, whatever can I have that and then go do this book? I know that happens, but yeah, it would be interesting to see how it's set up.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
One last question, sorry, that I would ask. Did you envision what the president's sons could have gone through if you had let them go over and hunt a kaiju?
Is that okay? So was he talking about Trump Jr.?
I'm sure he was. Yes,
that's what I saw in my head. I'm like, was that Trump did? I like it.
Unofficially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a throw in there. That would have been, that'd be a funny question. Just be like, so.
Rifle, go. Bye-bye. Have fun.
I think it was great that it was just the president's sons.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was good.
It'd have to, unless he's going from a completely fictional world, it'd have to be because Biden wasn't president at that time. Obama had daughters.
Yep.
Bush had daughters.
One of
Clinton
Biden's-
had a daughter. Like, we'd have to go way back before we would get to that. So yeah, it'd have to be.
Well, and didn't one of Biden's sons pass away?
He did, but he wasn't president at that time when he wrote
still
this
wasn't
book.
Even if he was talking about Biden, Biden doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah,
I just
so
Yeah.
no, yeah, no, that's exactly who I thought it was going to be. So, let's see. Would you read another book by the author? Absolutely. Like I said, I'm a little hesitant to read some of his more serious stuff. I may still give one a shot just to see. But I'm kind of interested to kind of go down the rabbit hole and see what all he's written and see which other ones are one-offs and more of the lighthearted sci-fi comedy type stuff. So, because I really enjoyed Star of Ellen and I really enjoyed this one. So,
Yeah.
if he has other stuff in that, and kind of in that vein, I'd gladly scarf it down.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm totally with you. Yeah, if it's like a fun, lighthearted thing. I don't know how deep and dark with the sci-fi I can go, just in terms of keeping up. But yeah, like one-offs like this where it's nice and light and funny. Yeah, absolutely. I would read more.
I would probably need the physical book because Will.
As long as if Will didn't narrate it.
I need a break.
Okay, what if he just had a break? What if it was just like, okay, maybe next year?
We'll see.
Still feel okay. I will say this. So when I was doing a little bit of research on this, I was trying to find some information or whatever. Seeing food mood actually written out broke my brain because it's food M U with the little things on the top D, and I think there was something else next to it. Because when I first looked at it, I was just like, "What is that word?" I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, that's a horrible name."
Yes.
Like, it would work fine as a delivery service somewhere else, but here in the U.S., people would be like, "What? No." So,
I was going to call the delivery people the liberators.
oh my god! I love the fact it was just like, did you take that from this? What? That's a thing? Yeah. So, well, let's go ahead and jump to that one. What did you think of the narration? So,
I don't mind Will Wheaton. I really don't care for. I just don't. He's not the best at accents, but there's lots of narrators who aren't. But when he tries, he sure tries. He tries. He tried with that Canadian French accent. He didn't do too bad. But like you could tell, like Neve was not American because they kept saying mate. Things like that, just like little. Yeah, some actors just aren't good at accents. He's not fantastic at them, but I like sometimes where he does his little inflections. It's cute. Some of the sentences he chooses to read, the way he chooses to read them are cute. So I didn't mind it.
before Ray says anything, I'm perfect. Okay, so yeah, I don't think he's the best narrator. That being said, I think he's perfect for this type of pop sci. I think pop sci stuff he's perfectly fine for. I think he was fine for this. I think he was fine for the other John Scalzi book. I think he was perfect for Ready Player One.
Yes.
Because he's such a geek. He's so entrenched in pop culture, sci-fi, geek culture specifically. I don't know if there was anyone else that really could have read that book the way he read it. So this type of stuff I'm perfectly fine with. Other things, like if it was a more serious book or whatever, oddly enough, his biography, a little questionable. I mean, I think he did a great job on his biography because he did keep stepping in and giving his own opinion about stuff. But yeah, I don't want to see his version of The Martian or I don't know, the Bobiverse books or something other stuff.
Bobiverse
or Dune, maybe not Dune.
Bobiverse. Like, no offense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, there's no one else that can read the Bobiverse books at this point. Like, it's just, yeah. Like, if they ever bring that to the screen, I'm gonna have a hard time. It didn't matter who they pick. They could pick the absolute best actor in the world, and I'm still be like, oh, that still sound like Bob. But anyway, all right, Ray. What were your thoughts on the reader?
Give it to us, Ben.
So I like Will. I think he's a great person. I love what he stands for. I love, he's a great interviewer. If he's reading the story and somebody else is doing the voices of the characters, okay, I can get on board. But when you have different characters and I can't tell who's talking, that's when I get lost in the story. So he tried. I appreciate his enthusiasm. It was 2 books in a row. Sorry, Will. I just
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Did reading impact your mood at all? Go on.
Yeah, I lifted it. It was nice. Yeah.
I think I'm the same boat as y'all. It was just fun. It was like there were parts where I laughed out loud when some of the stuff happened, that was kind of fun or whatever. But yeah, it would just even that it's kind of like Starter Villain. There are some people die. Like that's a serious thing. Like, some of the topics that they're covering could be held in a little more serious light, but it's just like, yeah, but it's Will Wheaton reading it, and it's supposed to be lighthearted and fun. So yeah, I never felt bogged down or anything by it. It was just like, all right, let's keep going. Let's keep going on this adventure, see what happens. So
yeah, I agree.
Any lingering questions?
What do they do with it? Well, no, I kind of know what they do with the dead kaiju.
How did they get the stench off of them?
Yeah, like what's their situation like? What's the showering situation
I know that they have it, but like they're dealing with pheromones that are like pretty.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like.
Yeah, like do they have like special soap that takes that off?
Or did the vaccines take away their sense of smell?
There you go.
That would be hilarious. Like if like in a second book or something like that, someone was just like, they're, something like, how did you get through without not having to do that one? They're like, oh God, I should have got back. Should have got that vaccine. I missed that one. Like they didn't have it or something on it. And literally they're just like, yeah, it really wasn't so much a vaccine as it was a thing to kind of deaden all your senses. So
it's pretty
that
rank.
would be funny.
Yeah. Everybody's a little witty.
Yeah. A little witty.
Let's see. Would you recommend the book? I obviously did, so my answer is yes on this one. I don't think we need to keep bringing up. It depends on the person, because honestly, it really depends on every book. Depends on the person. If that person doesn't like fantasy or sci-fi or horror or drama or whatever it is, you wouldn't want to recommend that book. But yeah, if like, okay, so Joseph is a good example. Would I recommend the book to Joseph? I'd be like, yeah, if you want a one-off sci-fi, pop sci-fi book, yeah, this is a fun one. Now the question is would I recommend this one or Starter Villain Verse? Knowing Joseph, I could go either way. Like I think he would like either one.
Either one on this one, yeah.
Whichever one you popped in your head first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I would. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I would do Starter Villain first, just because like him and Lainey have a cat and he's a cat person as well. That's the only reason I'd be like, nope, go ahead and start with this one first. If you like that one, then you got to hit this one too. So,
and they have an orange cat.
Yes, they do. He's a big orange cat too. Let's see here. Any themes, tropes, or anything in the book that they explored that you liked? And did they do a good job with it?
I will say I appreciate the way that they tried to explain how kaiju were scientifically possible, and how they were, different structures and stuff like that, and that they basically ran on an internal reactor. We've had natural reactors actually occur on Earth. There are certain parts of the world where the sand and a natural plutonium and everything, or not plutonium, uranium, mixed together with water, and it just so happened that it actually created a reaction on Earth naturally before. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat that he thought of a whole creature being able to, a whole set of creatures being able to create a nuclear reactor in order to have this giant beast.
And speaking of that, going back to what you were saying, Kris, about the fact that he thought out the world pretty well. Like there was even a part where he was talking about how if a certain kaiju doesn't hit a certain point in its development and doesn't have the right parasites to help it, like it'll become a smaller version. It just will never grow into the actual kaiju, size monster or whatever. So, but yeah, the fact that all that little stuff in there was thrown in there, I was like, this is that can it really helps you bring you into the world, and you're just like, oh no, this is like a thought out thing. It wasn't just like, oh no, there's kaiju here and they run off of nuclear power. Yeah, that's it. And so,
well, and then using the nuclear reaction to weaken the boundary between the two worlds, and the kaiju would come through to eat essentially the nuclear explosion on this side.
yeah,
it's like that was a good way of describing that too. So
yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any other final thoughts on it? I think we pretty much covered everything at this point.
Yeah, it's a fun read.
Yeah,
right?
it's quick. It's only like 8 hours, 9 hours, 8 hours, something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. So
yeah, in terms of audiobooks, like it's pretty quick. Yeah, it was same with the starter villain. It just was good. It was really good. I liked it.
Good deal. Well, next, I know we're recording this a little late. Some stuff came up, so we're recording it a little bit late. So, but our next book is technically for July, and that is Jennifer's book. It's The Milky Way by how do I say this? Moya McTeer. Moya McTeer. And so that will be our next book. And then after that, we'll hit Kris and Ray and Shaun, and then Joseph will give us one to round us out until November. So
I have yet to pick mine. I'm trying to find a good one. So
good deal.
That goes. I know Kris has started the next one. It is a quick read, thankfully. So because I haven't started it yet.
Neither have I.
I did talk to Kris as well. I'm probably gonna have to go at least 1.5 times on this one to kind of get through it. So it'll be even less time.
Oh, okay.
Not the narrator. The author narrates it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moya something.
Yeah, Moya McTeer.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's get on to what we've been reading. I'm gonna jump in first. So, like I said, had I already at least started this other book before I recommended this one, I probably would have gone in with it. And that is I'm currently reading a book. It's called The Happiness Curve by Jonathan Rauch. I listened to several different podcasts, and one of the podcasts I listened to, you would couch it as technically being a political podcast, but it's not really. Like, he does a lot of other theory and stuff. So like literally this week he's doing Judge Week, and he's talking about some of the Supreme Court decisions and stuff that are coming down, and he's talking to both lawyers and defender, and goes into a lot of different stuff, and he goes into a lot of theory as well. Well, anyway, I don't remember how he got started with this guy, but he read the book or heard about the guy and read this book. And that's where I heard about it. I heard the guy talking about it. He was giving a basic rundown of the book, and I thought, this sounds interesting. So I decided to read the book. And I'm not going to give too much away of it. But it's not a self-help book. It's one of those just kind of like an explanation of how things are going. Apply it to your life as you can. And so what it boils down to is they've done a bunch of research, not only in the US, but in lots of other countries. But essentially, as you go through life, these are longitudinal studies, so it's not just like kind of a one and done thing. You kind of crest happiness in your 20s. In your 30s, it's okay. You're still fairly happy, but it turns out in your 40s, you kind of bottom out in your happiness. And then as you go, for most people, 50s and 60s starts going up, and it literally keeps going up until you hit a point in your life where you just kind of, are hitting that old age and, start to, go downhill. Because there's lots of interviews. That's one of the things I like about it is there's lots of interviews in here, and it's, people talking about, they're like, yeah, if you ask someone in their 30s, would you want to go back to your 20s? A lot of them are just like, yeah, that might be fine. I might correct this, that, or the other. In your 40s, you're just like, oh, I don't know, maybe, or whatever. But like 50 past, it's pretty universal. Oh no, absolutely not. I am perfectly fine where I'm at. Maybe the kids are grown up and out of the house, or, things are going well in my job or what. I absolutely would not go back to that. and they even take out, they even look at, things for health. They look at things for unemployment and everything else. And he refers to it as it's not so much, you're not, some people have a midlife crisis because they don't know how to handle things. And the way he describes it more so is a midlife malaise. And he's just like, it's just, have you ever been, you realize you're getting into your 40s generally. Sometimes it happens earlier, sometimes it happens later. And you're just like, kind of in a rut. He's like, it is the way he kind of described it. He's like, you feel like maybe you're not making a difference. Maybe you're not advancing as far as you want or whatever. And nothing can change.
No.
You froze.
What?
You froze.
Oh, you froze up for a bit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe advancing as much as you thought is kind of
okay.
Yeah.
So if you're not advancing as much as you want, or you're just kind of like in a rut, you're just kind of stuck or whatever, and things may not even change. Like, you may not change jobs, you may not change your relationship, nothing. And then you just kind of start to pull out of it and keep going. And a lot of this also goes back to the research that's like, yeah, because in your 30s, the reason why you start getting, feeling hurt and broken down and stuff like that is because, up until about, 100 years or so ago, your 40s were it. Like,
yeah.
Like you were in the twilight of your life. So, and now that's like midlife. So our brains are having to reorganize themselves as to, what the rest of our lifespan is going to be like. And so it's interesting to hear this, because we hear this a lot, especially especially this book club, because we read books where we have characters that are, whether they're human, and technology has allowed us to live to 120, 140, 160 years old, or you're a creature like a vampire. And it's like, I've lived for, it's kind of a running trope in a lot of newer vampire stuff. The idea was, oh, well, they're a vampire and they just live forever and then whatever. Like, especially Anne Rice specifically brought up a lot of the vampires in her stories killed themselves after 100 or so years because their brains were not designed to handle living that long. You just got bored of everything. And so it's interesting seeing there's biological proof as to some of this stuff happening. And it does make me feel good in that, not that I'm really feeling it really heavily, but I mean, yeah, the reason I do Ghostbuster stuff is because I don't feel like I'm making a difference at work. Like, and there are thoughts starting to percolate in the back of my head. Like, am I going to have to get on the school board to correct stuff? Because I don't want to be like, well, my kids are out of school. It doesn't bother me anymore. It doesn't affect me anymore, whatever. I'm just like, no, I don't want to leave. You can't just leave this shit for someone else. Like, that's bullshit. Like, we got to fix some stuff. So anyway, really good book. Especially if you're in your late 30s, in your 40s, maybe check it out. It might be definitely worth the read. And who knows? It'll be a while before we come around and I have another pick, but right now it's leading my list of picks for the next time around. So, but that's going to be half a year around. We'll see. What else have you been reading, Ray?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think a thing.
Fair enough.
I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and listening to
the NHL just had their trade draft.
They had their draft.
He was busy.
They had
free
agency. And so I've been really listening to a lot of that. That's pretty much over for the summer now. So there might be an odd story here or there, but I'm not really going to be keeping up with it too much.
It's so cute. He's like, the NHL are doing the thing. So for the next 4 days,
hours,
4 days. I'm really not going to be here mentally. Like, I'm just going to be glued to my phone.
Constantly checking.
I love the fact that y'all's marriage, y'all's relationship, y'all have that built in. Like, so like when you said, like when Bridgerton came, the new season of Bridgerton came out, it's just like, listen, guys, I love y'all. Just understand, mom's not going to be here for a couple days.
Yeah.
And y'all are just like, cool, we'll roll through it. And dad's like, nope. And NHL stuff's going on. Like, you can talk to me, but it's not going to stick. It is what it is. So
now it's the time to ask for the pony.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely.
I won't remember it.
Kris, what else have you been reading?
A bunch of stuff. So I did start Jen's book. It's interesting that it's an autobiography, so it's from the Milky Way's point of view. So we'll see. So I I think I've really realized that my brain has limits in terms of what I will understand, no matter how much it's dumbed down. So I'm going to try. There were parts where she started saying protons and electrons, and I kind of gapped out for a little bit. And then she brought,
Ray just perked up.
I have a feeling there's going to be chunks of this book where I'm not going to remember it. So that's just my lot in life. I am not science inclined.
Fair enough.
And I have been, so I finished this book, which is The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty.
Oh,
This is
that's a hefty book you're holding there. Like for the
bad.
people who are not, no, for the people who are not watching this video, like I would look at that book and be like, damn.
No, yeah, okay. Well, it's like 400 and a half, like 400 plus pages. For me, it's not big. This is like average. And it's hardcover, but I like the cover. It's an adventure book set in the 13th or 12th century in the Middle East, which I've never read a book set in the Middle East during that time. So it was really, really interesting. Lots of historical facts woven into this kind of like fantasy pirate epic kind of heist mission, which was really cool. And it's a female protagonist, and she's in her 40s, and she's kick-ass. Really like her. She's left a wake of husbands behind her. It's amazing. And then for the other book club that I'm a part of, we read Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, which is this book.
Okay.
So the difference with this book is that it was originally written in Japanese and then translated into English. So the pacing's a little different.
Okay.
Are a little different. So it takes you a minute to be like, that read awkwardly, and then you kind of read it and you're like, okay. So by the end of it, you kind of get the handle of it. And it's 4 different stories, short stories. They're about 60 pages long each, of these characters that go to this specific cafe in Japan that has kind of like magical abilities where you can go back in time. But there's so many rules, which I love. One of them is you can only go back. When you go back, you only have until your coffee gets cold before you have to come back. So
okay,
it's good. It makes you think, because of all the rules, is it worth going back? And if it is, what would you go back and what would you do?
Well, and the other thing that I liked was that nothing changes.
Nothing changes in the present.
Yes.
Nothing changes in the present.
Nothing changes in the present.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an interesting thing as well. So everything stays the same, but somebody's knowledge of the past has changed.
Okay, I was going to say, so are they just going back for their own personal growth, essentially?
That's kind of what winds up happening, but that's not the reason why these people go back. They go back for reasons, but because the present doesn't change, what winds up happening is the person who goes back, they're the ones who are changed. So even though the bad thing's going to happen regardless, they themselves are changed for that event happening just because they went back, and they kind of got closure from it. And then there is the last story, they went to the future, but there was like so many specific parameters about how this worked. So anyways, there's so many rules. I really like it. It's very interesting just having the translation from Japanese to English. But it's also like a palate cleanser too. Like, it's big themes, but it's presented in a kind of really tangible way. And then now I'm reading God Killer by Hannah, I'm going to say Canner or Keener.
Light read.
Because it's called God Killer.
Yeah.
But a God Killer, there's 4 points of view right now. So it's a God Killer. Her name is Kessin. A knight who's kind of left to become a baker, named Elogast, a daughter of a noblewoman whose family has all just died, named Inara, and then the god that is attached to her, and I can't pronounce its name. It's with an S. It's Sketty something, but he's the god of little white lies, and so they've just come together. So it's very detailed. I ruined it for myself by accident when I went to the bookstore and I picked up the sequel and made the mistake of turning it over and reading the blurb on the back.
Oh, no.
That was bad of me. So we're going to see how this one ends, if I don't mind what I read on the back of the other book. It was really dumb of me to do that.
I was shocked you did it, first of all.
Other books, and it was like, oh, cool, I like that. But then I read that, and I'm like, no, why? Now, and I'm like,
so yeah, like we're at the bookstore, and she had it, and I'm like, oh, what's this? And she's like, oh, it's the sequel, and she goes and she puts it back. I'm like, oh.
I just ruined it for myself. He's like, what? What did you do? I'm like, no.
I was like, why did you do that?
So yeah, I ruined it. So, but we'll see how this ends. If it ends in a way that I'm fine with the way the story's going to go, like it needed to happen, then I will read the second one. But I shouldn't have done that, and I won't be doing that again.
Just don't.
But I did it to myself. It was my fault.
Well, fair enough. Anything else? We good to go?
Yeah, that's all I'm reading.
Cool.
Current for now.
I go back on contract this coming week, so I think I've got 2 credits right now, and so I'm gonna be looking for stuff. I may find something that I've been meaning to read, and then I may just have to go find like another Stephen King book that's like, 16 hours or something like that, something really long, because like I said, I do it at double speed, so that's only an 8-hour day. That's a day.
Yeah.
If I get stuck in a lab and I'm re-imaging computers or whatever, that I literally could finish it in a day. Like that's the type of stuff that I can do. So I tend to go back and be like, oh, time to do Bob again. Oh, time to do Magic 2.0 again. Time to do whatever again. So yeah, we'll see. So, but yeah, I've got at least 2 credits, and who knows, maybe I start Dune. I don't know. We'll see. So the only thing is though is no, wait a minute. I gotta see I'm gonna have to see how many credits I have, because I don't want to get into a situation where like I maybe read the first 2 and be like, I really want to get to 4 or 3, but I really don't want to wait a month till I get to it. So we'll see. So, but anyway, well, that's our show for this month, ladies and gentlemen. If you would please give us a 5-star rating on wherever it is you watch or listen to the show. I need to switch to that. I'm tired of listening to all. So yeah, wherever you listen to or watch the show, you can watch it on YouTube. You can find us at epicallygeeky.com, where you can find all of the shows that we do, including the Creatively Geeky Show, Epically Geeky Show, and Sustainably Geeky Show. You can find us on social media at Epically Geeky as well. Where can we find you online, Ray?
The Reluctant Yeti on Instagram. I have some drawings that I'm kind of thinking about getting into here, so and I gotta let you know how the printmaking goes as well. So.
Absolutely, Kris,
on Instagram at Moody Midlife.
And as always, you can find my individual wacky adventure online at Optimus Shane on Facebook, Instagram, and not Twitter, because whatever. For everyone on the site, have a good night.